Whether you're doing sci-fi or horror, comedy or tragedy, casting is a vital part of any work of film or television. Star Trek is no different. Across nearly 56 years of televisual history, countless hundreds, maybe even thousands of actors have crossed the bridges of the various titular ships and rubbed shoulders with some of the most recognizable faces in all of sci-fi. Finding somebody to sit through the often arduous process of makeup, particularly Ferengi, as many of this list have experienced, before delivering monologues of technobabble and unpronounceable Klingon, is going to be a tall order for any actor. It's no surprise then that the makers of all things Trek will occasionally have a flick through the pages of their phone books to find the names of Star Trek stalwarts who have reliably given great performances for years and in some cases decades. These then are the names of those that cast and directors can always rely on in times of need. Whether main cast, recurring characters or explosive cameos, the actors on this list have returned to the bridge time and time again, and their names truly are a part of Trek history. So with that in mind then, I'm Ellie with Trek Culture, and here are 10 Star Trek actors who have appeared in the most shows. Before we begin, just to let you know, we will not be including the recent announcement that the Next Generation cast will be returning to Season 3 of Picard, because technically it hasn't happened yet. Or maybe this article was written a while ago. Number 10, Tim Russ. Many actors have appeared in at least 3 incarnations of Trek, but none have the honour of sharing the screen with 4 separate series captains. For that honour, we must go to Tim Russ. Audiences' first encounter with Russ would be in the Next Generation episode Starship Mine, as a member of a group of mercenaries attempting to steal trilithium resin from the Enterprise D during a baryon sweep. Succumbing to a well-placed Vulcan nerve pinch by Picard, this would be a one-and-done deal for the character. In a weird display of typecasting, Russ would pop up again in Deep Space Nine under heavy Klingon makeup as somewhat of a wrong'un. Employed by the Trill Rad, Klingon mercenary Takar arrives on the station to help his employer forcibly extract the Dax symbiont from Jadzia as part of a tense hostage situation with Captain Sisko. Russ would share the screen with Captain Kirk in the movie Generations, but his most iconic role would be that of Voyager's resident Vulcan and Hirsute security officer Tuvok. A loyal confidant of Captain Janeway, Tuvok would be the first Vulcan presence on board a ship since Spock, and his frequent frustrations with the emotions of his illogical crewmates, looking at you, Neelix, would give the writers plenty to play with. Number 9, Randy Oglesby. Whilst many actors have appeared on multiple shows, there are only a handful who have portrayed as many different characters as Randy Oglesby. Originally appearing in The Next Generation as an unnamed artist in the chorus of Ramatizian mediator Reva, whose genetic deafness forced him to communicate to others through his telepathic retinue. Oglesby would catch up on the name character front by portraying twins Arkel and Rokel in Deep Space Nine. The actor would memorably return to Deep Space Nine as the menacing Silurin Prin, a Cardassian who murders members of Kira's Shakar resistance cell, who were responsible for his disfiguring during an attack before attempting to steal Kira's unborn baby. Oglesby would return in a couple of one-and-done deals as refugee Kir in Voyager and space scavenger Trenal in Enterprise, before sinking his teeth into the recurring role of Xindi scientist Degra in Enterprise. Responsible for the superweapon that first brought the Xindi to Earth's attention, Degra and his people are manipulated by the time-travelling sphere builders into trying to wipe out humanity. It is only by the intervention of Archer and the Enterprise that Degra could convince his species of this existential threat, and at the expense of his own life, prevent all-out intergalactic war. Number 8, J.G. Hertzler. The gravel-voiced John GarmanHertzler is one of only 5 actors to play 7 or more roles in Trek. Originally appearing in the Deep Space Nine premiere Emissary, Hertzler portrayed the Vulcan captain of the USS Saratoga, one of many ships which would fall at the hands of the Borg at Wolf 359, a loss which would also cause the death of then-Commander Sisko's wife Jennifer. It would be later in Deep Space Nine that Hertzler would shine as the Klingon General Martok and his changeling doppelganger. The latter of these connected but separate roles would put into motion the Klingon invasion of Cardassia, before the former is rescued rescued and plays a pivotal role in the all-out Dominion War, later ascending to the role of Chancellor. He would also appear as the changeling Lars, who comes into direct conflict with Martok after murdering a Klingon on the promenade. Hertzler returns as a Hirogen fighter in Voyager before again donning the Klingon makeup as both an unnamed captain and the jaded advocate Kolos, whose time defending Archer against the bloodthirsty High Council inspires him to stand up for the Klingons' forgotten sense of honour. Finally, lending his voice to a Drukmani scavenger in Lower Decks, Hertzler has joined the coveted 7 Roll Club and rightly takes his place in Trek history. Number 7. Clint Howard. Actors have appeared in more roles and across more series than Clint Howard, but none can claim to have played roles at such different times of their lives. The brother of acclaimed film director Ron Howard first appeared in Trek as far back as 1966 in the episode The Corbomite Maneuver, at only 7 years of age. Following an accidental foray in First Federation space, the Enterprise finds themselves in a diplomatic deadlock with a remarkably fake-looking alien, which later transpires to be a front for the diminutive Baylock, testing the humans' ethics. 29 years later, Howard would return to Trek in the Deep Space Nine two-parter Past Tense, playing a paranoid dim by the name of Grady, who steals Jadzia's comm badge, believing her to be a brain-sucking alien. Fast forward another 7 years and Howard would reappear as Muke, one of 3 Ferengi who board the Enterprise after knocking the crew unconscious in order to loot their resources. 16 years later, Howard would make his last Trek appearance in the Discovery Season 1 finale as an Orion of Kronos who drugs Ensign Tilly. With a Star Trek CV now spanning 51 years, it's fair to say nobody's coming for this record anytime soon. Number 6. Jeffrey Combs. One of Star Trek's most reliable recurring actors, to the point where it's basically a meme within the community, Jeffrey Combs appears in relatively few series, but he makes a huge impact in those that he does. After losing out on the role of William Riker to Jonathan Frakes, the successful auditionee kept Combs in mind when casting Quark's associate Tyron in a Deep Space Nine episode that he directed. Combs clearly made quite an impression, as he would go on to play the recurring characters of slimy Ferengi Brunt and the various clones of Dominion representative Weyoun. Combs would play the characters in 31 separate Deep Space Nine episodes, including pulling double duty as Weyoun and Brunt in the episode The Dogs of War. Following the end of Deep Space Nine, Combs would return to the franchise as the kidnapper Penk in Voyager and Ferengi Krem in Enterprise, before bagging another recurring character as Jonathan Archer's frenemy and kind of racist Andorian commander, Thylek Shran. After a long time absent from the franchise, Combs has recently lent his voice to the supercomputer Agimus in Lower Decks. Although other actors may have appeared in more shows, with 44 appearances across the franchise, Combs will always be a favourite. Number 5. Vaughn Armstrong. 12 characters, 8 species, 4 series and 28 episodes. Few people can be considered as much of a Star Trek mainstay as Vaughn Armstrong. Armstrong first appears in the Next Generation episode Hearts of Glory as the Klingon captain Chorus, who is attempting to fulfill his destiny as a warrior by stealing a freighter before coming into conflict with both the Klingons and the Enterprise. He would then don the Cardassian neck ridges twice on Deep Space Nine as the terrorist hunting Golden Nar and, ironically, the key Cardassian resistance member Seskal. Most of Armstrong's key roles would be with the crew of Voyager, including a Vidian captain, a Hirogen hunter, a former Borg from 7 of 9's Unimatrix, a Romulan scientist from the past who contacts the crew through a temporal displacement, and Korath, the Klingon who gives Admiral Janeway technology allowing her to travel to the past and return Voyager home. It wouldn't be until Enterprise's debut in 2001 that Armstrong would get a recurring role within the franchise as Admiral Forrest, head of the NX project, who worked closely with the Vulcans in the gestation and oversight of the Enterprise's first mission, as well as an unnamed Klingon and 2 stints as the fussy Cretaceans. Take it as a given, you've seen Vaughn Armstrong. Number 4. Marina Certis. For Deanna Troi, what started as a slightly fluffy role serving as the Enterprise D's eye candy would go on to be one of the most enduring and well-loved characters of the whole franchise. It's no understatement that this is down to the talents and tenacity of actress Marina Certis. Originally auditioning for the role of Lieutenant Hernandez, who would later be renamed Tasha Yar, Certis and Yar actress Denise Crosby swapped roles at the behest Behest of Roddenberry. The rest, of course, is history, and the idea of the two actresses in each other's roles after all this time is just baffling. After her run on The Next Generation, Certis would reprise the role of Deanna for the 4 movies, as well as appearing in Voyager as part of the Pathfinder project to contact the stranded Starfleet vessel, and alongside Jonathan Frakes in the disastrously misjudged Enterprise series finale. After some time off from the franchise, Certis would lend her voice to the character for the season 1 finale of Lower Decks, serving as a commander on board the USS Titan. Returning to live action in Star Trek Picard, Certis gave one of Troy's best performances in season 1's Nepenthe. Number 3. John de Lancie. Of the recurring actors who have never made it to the opening credits, few have become as outstandingly memorable as John de Lancie in his time as the mischievous Q. Debuting in The Next Generation's opening encounter at Farpoint, de Lancie chewed all the scenery that was afforded to him as the omnipotent arbiter of humanity's place in the cosmos. Ultimately deciding to allow Starfleet out further into space as a trial for their species, Q would return multiple times over the series run, turning from antagonist to arrogant and playful anti-hero. After getting punched in the face by Commander Sisko at a time when Deep Space Nine was still languishing in The Next Generation's shadow, Q would move to the Delta Quadrant and begin tormenting Catherine Janeway, giving de Lancie a chance to spice up his performance with some Lothario. De Lancie later lent his voice to Lower Decks, poking fun at this godlike being's obsession with banal human games, before a much more serious and nefarious Q appears in Picard's mirror during the Captain's eponymous series, continuing the trial he started all those decades ago. Number 2. Jonathan Frakes. If in doubt, add some Riker. So goes the seemingly unwritten motto of the Star Trek canon, as since his debut in 1987, Jonathan Frakes has played the bearded commander in 6 separate series and 4 films, making him one of the most reliable appearances in Trek history. Originally chosen from a deluge of potential candidates, Frakes' youthful energy in The Next Generation created an immensely watchable dynamic alongside his more stern captain, and with the growing of the iconic beard in Season 2, a true icon was born. Frakes would reprise the role of Thomas Riker, a transporter accident-created clone in the Deep Space Nine episode Defiant, as well as appearing as OG Riker in Voyager as part of the trial of the rogue Q, Quinn. When it was time for Enterprise to call it a day, the writers decided to completely torpedo the franchise and draft Frakes in again, turning the series finale into a holodeck simulation that not even the actor can bring himself to justify. Frakes' dulcet tones would appear in 3-episode arc as captain of the USS Titan in Lower Decks, before coming to the rescue of Picard in the latter's own series, proving that the actor, the character, and the beard can still be relied upon to this day. Number 1. Majel Barrett Roddenberry. The First Lady of Star Trek and wife to series creator Gene Roddenberry, it's no wonder that one of Trek's most beloved voices would top this list. First appearing as number 1 in the original Star Trek pilot The Cage, Barrett would unfortunately not make it to the full series in this role due to studios disliking the idea of a female second in command, but would return as recurring character Christine Chapel aboard the Enterprise bridge, a role she would resume in the animated series alongside many other voices. Barrett would return in live-action Trek as the bombastic Luoxana Troi, mother to Deanna Troi and effervescent nuisance to the crews of the Enterprise D and Deep Space Nine. Taking a particular romantic liking to both Jean-Luc Picard and Odo, Luoxana's episodes were always marked with hilarious pageantry and occasional forays into some truly touching emotion. Although they may not realise, many people will know Barrett due to her time as the voice of the ship's computer across the original and animated series, The Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, Enterprise, and several movies. With footage from The Cage reappearing in Discovery episode If Memory Serves, even after her passing, Barrett continues to be a Star Trek institution. And that concludes our list. If you can think of any that we missed, then do let us know in the comments below. And while you're there, don't forget to like and subscribe and tap that notification bell. We have reached our goal of 200,000 followers way ahead of schedule. So from all of us here at Trek Culture, thank you to all you wonderful subscribers. You can also find us over on Twitter, and I can be found across various social medias just by searching Ellie Littlechild. I've been Ellie with Trek Culture. I hope you have a wonderful day, and remember to boldly go where no one has gone before.